Alright, so boys and girls, I'm gonna just do a quick video on how to review on how to subtract um, fractions that have uncommon denominators, okay? So the first one that I'm gonna go over with you right here is just this one here, 3/4 minus 1/3, okay? And I'm gonna rewrite it over here, 3/4 minus 1/3. And the first thing that we need to do is we need to make and find a common denominator, okay? So I'm going to look at, my first thing I'm going to do is to see if one denominator is a multiple of the other. So I can see that 4 is not a multiple of 3. So I'm just going to list quick multiples of 4, and you can do this in your head or mentally um, and find a common denominator, a common multiple between those two denominators. So 4, 8, 8's not a multiple of 3, 12. Oh, 12 is a multiple of 3, so I can use 12 as my common denominator. So I'm going to change 3/4 to a fraction, an equivalent fraction using twelfths. So to get twelfths, I have to multiply 4 by 3. So whatever I do to the denominator, I must do to the numerator. So I'm just really multiplying by one whole. So I'm going to take 3/4 times 3/3, put that in parentheses, and get 9/12. So 9/12 is an equivalent fraction to 3/4. Now I need to change 1/3 to 12ths. 3 times 4 is going to be 12, so I need to multiply my denominator and numerator both by 4. So 1/3 times 4/4 would be 4/12. And now I have two fractions with common denominators, and now I can subtract that a little bit easier. So 9/12 minus 4/12, I don't need to make any trades. I can do that. 9/12 minus 4/12 is 5/12. And there's my answer, okay? So just in this case, I just needed to find a common denominator, change my fractions to equivalent fractions, and then I was able to subtract. Let's do another example here. Makes it a little easier. All right, so let's try 3 1/3 minus 1 1/2. So I'm going to do 3 1/3 minus 1 1/2, okay? Again, my first thing I noticed is, look, I got two fractions here with uncommon denominators, okay? So I have a 3 and I have a 2. So I'm going to first see if one denominator is a multiple of another. Well, 3 is not a multiple of 2. So I'm going to list multiples of 3 until I get one. So 3, 6, oh, stop, 6 is a multiple of 2. So I know I can use 6 as my common denominator. So here I have a whole number and a fraction part. I just need to change my fraction part to 6, because I'm going to use 6 as my common denominator. Well, I know 3 times 2 is 6, so I need to multiply my denominator by 2 and my numerator by 2. So 1/3 times 2/2 would get me 3 and 2/6. And now I need to change my half to 6. And a lot of you probably already know that a half is equivalent to 3/6, but just to show it, 2 times 3 is 6. So if I multiply my denominator by 3, I also need to multiply my numerator by 3 to make sure I'm multiplying that fraction by one whole. So 1/2 times 3/3 would be 3/6. And then I still have my one whole over here that I need to make sure I bring over. And now let's subtract. I have common denominators. Now if I'm looking here, it's going to be really hard to take 3/6 from 2/6, okay? So I'm going to need to make a trade. I'm going to go over to my holes here, and I'm going to trade a hole. I'm going to trade that hole. So I'll have two holes for 6/6, because in this case it takes 6/6 to get a hole. So I'm really just trading one hole for 6/6. So if I had 2/6 and I added 6/6 onto those 2/6, then I will have 8/6. So now I can subtract. 8/6 minus 3/6 is 5/6. And my two holes minus one hole is one hole. So my answer is 1 5/6. All right. So in this case, I had mixed numbers, and I had to change my denominators to make sure they were common, and I also had to make trades. So you always need to make sure you're following all those problem-solving steps when you're subtracting mixed numbers. Let's do one more example. Okay, let's do 10 1/5 minus 4 2/3. All right, so again, I have a mixed number here that I'm trying to subtract, and if I look at my fractional parts of my mixed numbers, I got uncommon denominators. So I need to find a common denominator. First, I'm going to ask, is 5 a multiple of 3? Nope, it's not. Can't multiply 3 by anything to get 5. So I'm going to list multiples of 5. So 5, 10. Okay, stop. Is 10 a multiple of 3? Nope. 15, stop, is 15 a multiple of 3? Yeah, I can multiply 3 times 5 and get 15. So I can use 15 as my common denominator in this case. So I'm going to change my 1/5 to an equivalent fraction using 15ths. Well, I know 5 times 3 is 15. So if I multiply my denominator by 3, I must also multiply my numerator by 3, so or 3/3. So 1/5 times 3/3 would be 3/15. And I still have my 10 wholes that I need to make sure I rewrite over here. And 2/3, okay? I know 2/3. I know 3 times 5 is 15. So I need to multiply my denominator and numerator both by 5 or 5/5. So 2/3 times 5/5 is 10/15. And I need to rewrite my 4 wholes over here. And now, let's see if I can subtract. Well, first I'm going to see if I need to make any trades. I do, because I see I have more on the floor than on the top. So I'm going to need to go next door. So it's going to be really hard to take 10/15 from 3/15. So I'm going to go next door. I'm going to trade a hole. So if I had 10 holes, I'm going to have 9 holes now. And I need to think, what made up that hole? Oh, 15/15 makes up that hole. So it takes 15/15 to get one hole in this case. So I'm going to trade a hole for 15/15. So if I had 10 holes, I now have 9. And if I had 3/15 and I got 15 more 15ths, then 3/15 plus 15/15 would get me 18/15. And now I can subtract. So 18/15 minus 10/15 is 8/15. And subtract my holes. 9 holes minus 4 holes is 5. So my answer is 5 and 8/15. All right. So that's just a quick review on how to subtract fractions with unlike denominators. I hope that helped.